Hi, I'm Jesse Ahmet, your host of Valley News Now, here with Veronica Redfield from Fed Resource ND. And we're talking financial stuff, and the tax code is written in pencil?
Yes.
That's what it feels like, but what does that mean?
Well, I often tell clients, like, it's not something that's set in stone forever, and your guess is as good as mine in what you're going to do. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a CPA, I'm not giving tax or legal advice right now, but I don't have a crystal ball to tell people what to do, when to do it, so we just have to go based on education and say, what is the right thing to do? And the reason I said that would probably be a good topic for today is it's getting to be towards the end of the year. Are you doing a Roth conversion? Does that is that something that actually is in your agenda? What a Roth conversion is basically when you take some taxable funds and you move it over to a Roth IRA, following the rules of having at least for 5 years until 59 and a half, you can actually take those funds tax-free.
Wow.
So it's a good plan to have in your retirement, but if you do it now, it can cost you. So it can cost taxes. That's where a CPA would be involved to help you figure out, is this right for me, is it not? But if you think of like the history of the IRA, the goal of the IRA is to defer your taxes to later, which most people think later they're going to be in a lesser tax environment, but hence where I say the tax code is written in pencils. What do you think taxes are going to be later down the road?
And we don't have a crystal ball. We just educate a guess.
Right. So I always tell people, like, the best tax rate to pay is obviously 0, but we don't know for sure how to do that other than you can, with a Roth conversion, solidify a 0% on that bucket of money down the road.
Wow.
So, but there's a lot of planning and there's a lot of work into it. I tell clients, like, you can do projections of Roth conversions for the next 5 years, show how much your assets have grown, but you still have to remember that it's going to cost you in a year to year. Now, there is no limit on the Roth conversions that you can do. You just have to realize you're paying taxes, not like the contributions on a year-to-year basis. People get that confused. You do have a limit yearly, just not on the conversions. Everybody repeat that back to me. See what I say?
What I'm going to repeat back is talk to an expert.
Yes. One thing that I tell clients too, if you can help it, is like you have 3 buckets of money. You have your tax-free, tax-deferred, and taxable. So the tax-free would be considered the Roth when you followed the rules with that. Tax-deferred would be your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, your TSP, all that kind of stuff. And your taxable would be like CD money that doesn't have those titles, or savings, checking that you always get that little 1099, you know, at the end of the year that you have to pay on your gains. So having the 3 different buckets in retirement is actually very helpful because then you can have a little more control of how much taxes you're going to pay.
Which adds up. I mean, it adds up a lot. That's what we want to. We want to keep the money that we earn, which I think is part of the point of doing all these things.
Yes, there's actually, it's kind of like a rippling effect if you think about it. So if you do Roth conversions now, it not only benefits you as far as having that bucket with a 0%, but also if you have a spouse that's survivor income. Most people don't think about it, and when you lose a spouse, your bills don't cut in half. They don't say, I'm going to charge you half of your utilities because you lost a spouse. You might downsize, you might get rid of a car payment, but you don't lose, you know, your expenses essentially. And then the next thing is you go from a married filing jointly to a single tax bracket, which most people don't realize that hurts a little bit. And then when you go down one more level, and then what if you and your spouse pass away? Then what happens if your money goes to your kids or a non-spousal beneficiary of some sort? The Secure Act 2.0 passed a law recently, all during COVID, because we didn't have enough going on, that if you're a non-spousal beneficiary, you have to spend assets in 10 years.
You're kidding.
So what that means is, like, if your kids inherited your retirement accounts, and let's say they're making good money, well, how much of that are they actually going to get, because it's all taxable, and they have to spend it within 10 years?
Yeah, that's a lot.
It used to be stretched over their lifetime, but obviously, like I said,
that's a huge change.
It is. And because they were shoving things out so fast, they made the law, and then they made the law where whether you had to do RMDs or not, it's been a lot of fun trying to keep up with all this. I'll just put it that way.
That's why you say it's written in pencil. And also it seems to be written at the speed of light here too.
And then not everybody understands it.
I would say, well, most people, I'll speak for myself, but I mean, you can be a professional person and be educated in lots of areas and have no idea about the tax code. So, you know, I think we've talked about this before, but it isn't a reflection on, you know, your level of education or anything. It's just, we can't be all pros in in all areas. So this is why you really need to talk to somebody who knows the code. That's their job. That's their thing. I mean, you love it. You like eat it for breakfast. And your favorite. I just see it when you start talking about it. I'm like, I'm just so happy that I met you. That's all I have to say. But that's what you got to do.
Yes.
You got to find someone who loves it like that, and you're like, okay, what do I do?
And explain it to you in your terms, not, you know, I was at a training a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking. It was a bunch of us financial advisors, and the advisor in the front of the room was talking just in financial jargon, and one of the other guys is like, wait, if you said that in front of a client, do they understand?
Yes, and that's so important to remember.
There's so many words that I even have to catch myself sometimes, like, okay, stop. The glazed over look means that I need to slow down, take it a little step back, and just re-explain something. But yeah, there is so much. And most people, like some of my clients, which I love, they're like, well, what does that mean to me? Like, how does that affect me? I don't care what it means, like, to the rest of the world, but how does it affect me?
That's a great question to remember to ask. How does this affect me?
Right. Well, like, you have all sorts of income coming in. Is it taxable? Is it tax deferred? Is it tax free? So it's not just, you know, I have 5,000 or 10,000 coming in, but how much does Uncle Sam get a portion of? So knowing the types of income that you have, where they fall in that bucket, there's a lot of planning. But so Roth conversions, for example, with my clients, I try to project for the year roughly where we think we're at, where we're okay paying, and then we execute at the end of the year, because you don't want to do it ahead of time and ruin your plan.
Okay, so yeah, that's my question is, why is that a thing that we're looking at now towards the end of the year? Just going to be like really honest that I don't know why. Why a certain time of year.
Perfect way to do it. So the reason is because when you're in retirement, things happen. You know, unexpected expenses happen, or just life happens even if you're not in retirement. So if we say we're going to convert $30,000 of qualified funds into a Roth, we're expecting to pay tax on that based on your tax brackets.
Okay.
But let's say we converted $30,000 in March, but in January we need $10,000 for a furnace. Okay, I don't know that that's what it costs, but we need $10,000 or for a new car down payment.
Something.
Well, now where are we going to pull those funds from? Are we going to pull from the Roth that we just converted? You know, what are the rules? When did we do that? Or are we going to pull another $10,000, which then made us pay more taxes than we initially planned?
Okay.
So I like to purposely start in the beginning of the year. This is roughly where we're at. Let that number sink in for you. And I always ask people, you don't do a Roth conversion if you don't think taxes are going to go up.
Okay.
If you think taxes are going to stay the same, not do anything, don't even worry about it.
Okay.
But if you think taxes are going to go up, or you want to protect your heirs, you know, should something happen and your assets pass, that's when you want to consider it. So it's not for everybody. It's not something you're going to do the same amount every year. I usually say this is where we're at for the year. We'll see how life goes, and at the end of the year, we're choosing a dollar amount.
Nice. Yeah. And you can do that every
year.
Yep. Which is what's so important about seeing somebody to help you out with that stuff too, because we got enough day to day. To not be like, should I convert somehow? Do a Roth conversion this
Well, that's
year?
not what you're not going to go have coffee with your friends and say, should I just do this?
Yeah. No, I'm sure you and your friends have talked about that, but me not so much.
Right. And then we talk about that ripple effect, actually, another side note. So by converting your funds, they also changed the Secure Act, the date of RMDs, which are required minimum distributions.
Okay.
And so now between 73 and 75, depending on your year of birth, you are required to take a distribution from these qualified accounts,
Really interesting.
whether you want to or not.
Wow.
And
okay.
so what happens is the older you get, the factor gets larger. And so if taxes go up and now you're forced to take more money, it's going to get kind of expensive, right?
So that's something you need to be kind of keeping in the mix as well.
I have a lot of clients that come in, they're like, my pension, my Social Security, I'm fine, I don't need any money. Well, I can show them when RMDs come, if they didn't touch any retirement assets, didn't convert, didn't do anything, they might have $50-some thousand, depending on their total, that they have to take, which if taxes go up, you know, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if you would have did a little bit now.
At a time. So you might think, well, I don't need that. It's better to keep it there, but it might not be better to keep it there. It might be better to take some of that as you get towards that point where you're forced to.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, this is something we look every year. Like, should we put some from the taxable to the non? We just consider doing that every year so that when the RMDs happen, they're not as big. Or like I said, you lose a spouse, you go to the single tax bracket, or, you know, if you look at the history of tax rates, we're in an all-time low. There's only one way they can go up, in my personal opinion. You know, so I feel like if we can prevent as much unknown issues down the road where we have to take more to net more into your bank account. Oh, there I go using words that I probably shouldn't, right?
Nope. That's good. We have Google, and also then we can stop and ask you. I think that's another important piece to tell people too, is just stop and ask when you're
Right.
like, I didn't understand that word. Nobody expects you to know all the things, you know?
Well, and it takes time. Like I just had a client in my office the other day and she's like, she's like, when I first started working with you, she's like, my husband knew everything. And he didn't even show up to the last two. It's been just her. But she's like, I understand now. I get it. She's like, I can explain what's going on.
That's pretty cool.
And I tell her, I'm like, you're very normal. You have your profession.
Mm-hmm.
It's just repetition and actually living through things that makes it hit home a little bit better because you're like, you have those moments. It makes sense. And we've gone through it enough and you've asked enough questions to be like, I got this. I got this.
And you're with somebody who's taking the time to do that. So, I mean, I would kind of put that advice out there as well. If you're not feeling like you're getting that, might not be the right fit for you.
Right, exactly. I always tell people, like, if you can't be 100% honest with the person across the table, you should not work with them.
Yes.
Because I feel like being an advisor is like a lifelong friend, a lifelong person that's going to be a part of your journey. And I joke with people, I'm not your mom and I'm not your spouse, but I act like it. You call me and you say you want money, I'm going to talk to you about taxes.
Right.
If you're taking too much too fast, I'm going to tell you. But then you don't live in regrets. You don't you don't get do-overs.
Have all the information before you make that decision, and if you still make that decision, just like a parent, well, then you do. You live with your consequences.
That's exactly it. I'm like, I'm here to advise, but
right. But I want to give you all the information, and then you decide.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, but it's fun, and it's just Roth conversions are a good thing to consider if you haven't. It's not for everyone. It's not maybe even a right now potentially for some people, but it's something to think about. And like I said, this is how I do it in my firm: is we do it. Think about it in the beginning of the year and then figure it out at the end of the year which we're going to do. So
and just keep doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and we have decided that instead of talking about all the things at one time, we're going to try to keep it to one topic, which I think is great.
Yes.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say on that?
I don't think so, but I think that's a good idea because we kind of go off of each other very well, and we could probably be here all day.
Yes, so we're going to give you smaller pieces to consume.
Yes, yes. So I think that's good enough for today.
Yeah.
Take a little bit away from it and ask questions.
And it's Fed Resource ND is Veronica's firm, and I'm just going to take you there real fast. This is her Facebook page, Fed Resource ND. We've talked about too, the ND is so you know that it's local, like the all of the financial information is different depending on what state you live in, all of that. And so that's a cool thing if you're a North Dakota resident, that you've got that extra special level or layer of knowing the North Dakota rules a little better than somebody would who's not from here.
Well, and fair? I think the biggest thing is like I'm here. Like a lot of people still value the sit across from the table and ask questions because people come in with their questions, and most of the time I already have those same questions on mine that I'm going to go over. And so I think that's the biggest thing I get from people. But there are some differences between different states depending on what we're talking about for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And the sit in person is nice too. I think I keep hearing more and more from all different kinds of areas that we want to get back to in person. I mean, people are actually craving that. Like, the convenience is great of doing stuff online, but you can't see the glazed over eye look when you're not in person. So.
If their computers, the camera isn't working, I can't tell if they roll their eyes at me either. I usually joke that. I'm like, if you get to see me, I get to see you.
Right, yep.
Plus, we have 2 little puppies that usually visit the office, so.
Right, and they have the best snacks.
Yes.
Not that you should always choose based on your stomach's needs, but, it does help.
Yeah, I don't want to talk hangry, so I don't expect anybody else to.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Veronica. I'm having a hard time cutting this out.
I know.
Veronica Redfield, Fed Resource ND. And this one is all about the tax code being written in pencil, which just means it changes, and it's good to go to an expert. So thanks so much. I'm Jessie Ammett, your host of Valley News Now. We are fun.